Y'all, today I'm gonna go through the best books I reckon you should read in 2023. These are some life-changing books. I think if you take these and you actually read it, apply the principles and lessons in it, you'll go really far this year. If you have New Year's resolutions, you'll smash it. These books will take you to the top. So the first book I want to go over is called Atomic Habits. Yo, just a quick interruption. I realized I did not talk about Atomic Habits and what it's about. Basically, it's a blueprint of how you can achieve any change or habit or goal you wish to achieve, and through a process or manner that's likely to keep you on track. Now, you may have heard about this, your friends may have recommended it to you, but honestly, this is a life changing book. The content in here is super. I guess if you watch self improvement videos, you'll probably hear all the content that's from this book just vocalized. This book really breaks it down into curating your environment, the way you can go about setting identity-based goals. It's a lot more. There's a lot of relatable examples in it, and a lot of really practical steps that you can take to start today. Like, you can go read one chapter and be like, oh damn, I can kind of do all of this. There's really nice chapter summaries, so you don't feel like, oh, I just read a huge chapter and I kind of feel a bit clueless on what to do. This book really guides you through it, and it's built in a nice process where you can kind of take it step by step, implement it, and just, I don't know, implement any habits, any changes you want to make in your life, any resolutions you want to meet. This really helps set yourself up for it and to accomplish those goals. The second book that I reckon that anyone should read, almost everyone should read, is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Yeah, it sounds kind of sly and dodgy, the title, but honestly, it's a ultimate book on how to create great social relationships, how to interact with people. It's got lots of, I guess, tidbits that you should do, but it just goes through all these principles, and they're very practical. They're both very practical. This Atomic Habits book and How to Win Friends and Influence People is super practical. There's lots of examples. There's also, I like the way Dale Carnegie kind of goes through the examples and then brings it together into this one principle that you can sort of apply. There's a lot. At first, you may think it's kind of a bit wishy-washy, but honestly, just go through the entire book. There's so many lessons to be learned, and I highly recommend it. I actually read that book, or I listened to the book through Audible. So if you really want to get yourself a hold of these books, I highly recommend, How to Win Friends and Influence People. I reckon you can get it from Audible, but honestly, I reckon these books are good to have physical copies of. But if you can't do that, then Audible, you can get a free book, free trial, which is just as good. What I did when I read the Audible is I had my Google Notes, and I used to write down the notes of each principle and some lessons I learned from the interaction and the examples, and that's really helped. So now I just basically have a guide on the principles that I could use to help interact with others. And it sounds a bit, it does sound a bit shady, but it's just nice tidbits, like calling people by their name, smiling, listening, trying to see things from their point of view. It's kind of all stuff that you should be doing, but it just highlights it in a way where you can kind of take the lessons and remind yourself oh, hey, yeah, I should be more caring. I should listen. I should do this because it's just a decent thing to do. Another book that's quite nice and I think everyone should give a read at some point is Sapiens. This is a book on a brief history of humankind. It says right there. That was a very interesting read. It kind of goes through how humankind has evolved over time in terms of where we were at the beginning, in terms of being huntsmen, the agricultural era, and where we are now. It breaks down how we've come together as a community, how we've dispersed, what's kept us together. It's a really insightful book. Sometimes it does get a bit you kind of feel like it's just getting longer and longer. It doesn't end, but honestly, just take a break from it if you have to. Come back to it. It's such an interesting read, and I feel like I've learned quite a bit more about how we've come to where we are. So in that way, it's really cool. There's a few other books I've been reading as well at the moment. There's a book called The Courage to Be Disliked, and a few others, which I can go through again. I've read quite a few books in my time, but the books I mentioned today, Atomic Habits, How to Win Friends and Influence People, and Sapiens, are great starters to your year, and I think they're a great book to add to any collection, and the lessons you can take from it are super practical. And I feel that if you have any New Year's resolutions, whether to be more courageous or dieting or building muscle, all these stuff, I feel like you can extract some lessons from these books. Oh, in building more friendships, getting into a relationship, all these things, yeah, can be helped through these books. So yeah, that's my recommendation. All the best. See you in the next video. Peace.